Okay, this is me logged into my already installed Nexus dashboard, and this is the very first screen that you see. Ignore the fact that I have a bunch of other fabrics connected here because we're going to create a new fabric and we're going to make it a VXLAN EVPN fabric and then have Nexus Dashboard do all the configuration for us, and at the very end, we'll have a working fabric. So what we need to do first is create this fabric sort of shell or placeholder that we'll put all of our devices into. So we're going to do that by going on the left navigation pane, and we're going to go to Manage and then select Fabrics. In this case, I want to click the blue button that says Create Fabric. Now, the nice thing about Nexus Dashboard here is we can do Greenfield, which is our case today, or we can onboard existing Brownfield, and so on and so on. So we're going to create a new LAN fabric, and then we'll click Next. The other nice thing is it doesn't always have to be a VXLAN EVPN fabric. In our case, it is, and that's the one we kind of want you to deploy in most cases. But if you're using classic LAN or other types of very dedicated topologies like AIML or IP fabric for media, we've got those templates too. But in our case, we're picking the very easiest default of a VXLAN EVPN for Cisco Nexus. And then you see on the right, we have some choices here. This is a data center VXLAN EVPN because we are, in fact, running this on Nexus 9000, not in the campus. So that's pretty easy. So we'll go ahead and we will click Next. And there are some basic settings that you will need to put here. These are all pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to give this just a name of test because it is a required field. You can pick your location. Obviously, it's defaults to San Jose, but you can input your city where your data center is. And then you're going to need an AS number for this fabric. This will represent the whole fabric. So pick an appropriate number that makes sense for you. These defaults here, essentials, telemetry, we can leave them as they are. And then we would go ahead and click Next. We get a final chance to review our settings. We are going to be sourcing telemetry from Loopback 0 and so on, but it doesn't really matter. These are pretty much all the defaults, and these are okay for most deployments. And then if we're ready, we'll go ahead and click Submit. Now, I'm not going to do that because I actually have already created a shell here that I'm using to put all of my devices into, and that's this one, VXLAN-IST. So I've already done that exact thing that I showed you already here. So if I go into that fabric, you can see I don't have any switches. There's nothing configured here. Right now, it's basically an empty shell waiting for a fabric. And so if I want to add those switches, I would go under the Inventory tab, and you can see here that we have no switches. So we need to add them. We need to discover them. So we can go here under the Actions button here on the middle right, and we can say Add Switches. Now, there's a couple of ways that we offer to you to be able to add switches. If you choose the default Discover, we assume that you have already manually configured an IP address and a user account on the management port of all of your devices and connected them appropriately to reach those interfaces. That is not our case today. Right now, my devices have 0 config, as I said earlier, so we need a different method. There are 2 other ways to do it. One of them is Bootstrap, where we can use DHCP and actually use that exchange and then have Nexus Dashboard be that server, and then also pass, as part of the DHCP exchange, a config file, and then bring them into the fabric, and so on and so on. We're not actually going to use that one either. We are going to use pre-provision. Now you can see here, pre-provision is for those cases where you have the devices, you know what the serial numbers are, but maybe you're still waiting for somebody to sort of, cable them up, power them up, and get you ready to go. But we can do that ahead of time. So that is the option that I am going to do. Now, there are some basic settings that you have to turn on for pre-provision to work. So let me show you that by exiting out of here. And if we go to the dark blue action button and we go to our fabric settings, if we say fabric management here and we go to Bootstrap, you need to enable the Bootstrap checkbox here, and then you need to enable the local DHCP server. What we're saying here is let's let Nexus Dashboard be both of those things. You don't have to have it be the DHCP server, but it's probably easier. In this case, it's the simplest way to go. So that's what I'm showing. We'll put some IP addresses here in our scope, and then we'll use that to do the pre-provisioning. And then when the switches do power up and come online, the exchange will happen. through DHCP, the config file will be given and the switches will be ready to be discovered and configured. There's also one more setting that you have to do if you're going to use the pre-provision method that will make all of this work very easily. And that's under the admin setting, system settings, fabric management. This is not enabled by default. So I had to go on and enable this, and it's called auto admit pre-provision switches during repo-app. And this is what it's going to do is once you pre-provision and the DHCP exchange happens, it's going to automatically allow that switch to join because we recognize their serial number, and then it will join the fabric and be ready to go. So those are settings that you will need to turn on ahead of time. So let's go back to our inventory. Let's go back to adding our switches, and let's go into our pre-provision. The first thing that you need is an admin username and password. Now, right now, I don't have any password on any of these devices, but I'm gonna set one that will be used when the switches get their configuration file. These are the credentials that will also be programmed onto the device. You can use the default admin user, which is my example, or you can specify your own custom user as you like. Now over here, we need to actually pre-provision those switches, and this is where the serial numbers come into play. So we're going to click Actions, Add. We are going to put a serial number, and you can see I've actually been here before. So let's go ahead and pick a serial number. The next field, and you can see some of these fields are required by the little red asterisk, is the model. So you can see that we've already got all the supported models listed. So you can actually type and search for something. So in this case, I think my spine is this version. This is just to give an indication for what version of NXOS you think these switches are running. In my case, I know they're running 10.5.2, so I'm just going to add that. It is a required field. IP address, obviously this is the out-of-band management IP address. And then we're going to need to give it a host name. Now you're going to have those names chosen ahead of time, so copy and paste that here. Image policy, not required. Switch role, not required, but it's a good idea here to probably set the role. And now we offer a number of different roles. In most cases, it's going to be spines are spines and leaves are leaves, and that's enough for a single fabric for a VXLAN EVPN. In my lab, I'm actually doing something beyond the scope of this video that I'll show in later videos, where I actually need my spines to be what are called border gateway spines. It doesn't really matter. You pick the role that's appropriate for you. Again, it's probably going to be spines for spines, leaves for leaves. Let's not make it any more complicated. And then you're going to put your gateway, and this is your out-of-band management default gateway and mask. And then when you're ready to go, you can click Save. Now, I'm not going to click Save because I'm going to show you that there's an even easier way to kind of get this stuff ready to go ahead of time and not have to manually add and type and click and save and do this 10 times more. So what you can do is you can actually import. So let's actually go and do the import method. I've created a CSV file. In fact, to get the format of the CSV file, I clicked Export, and it gave me kind of like a blank template. I filled in the rows with all the data, and off I go. So I've already done that. So I'm going to use import. So let's click import and see how that works. So I've gone and I've found that file that I've created, and I dragged and dropped it here. And it has all the information for all 4 of my nodes. And so we can go ahead and click OK. And you can see these fields were populated. Again, if you are confused about how I did that CSV, all you have to do is go under Actions and say Export, and it will actually export the CSV file with all the appropriate fields and structures that you need, and you just kind of fill in the blanks, okay? So we've got that now. So now what's actually happening? So we should probably commit this. So I'm going to select all of my devices and click on Pre-Provision. So I'll go ahead and do that. And right now, in just a second, once that is accepted by the system, what's going to happen? Well, remember, we turned on our local DHCP server, and we said that server should be the Nexus Dashboard controller, and there are some configuration aspects that should go along with that DHCP exchange. So I'm going to click over into my console. So I've got my console running, and you can see here, got spine 1, spine 2, leaf 1, leaf 2. And right now, the mode, and this is the default for every switch that's out of the box, new or completely write erased, is it goes into what's called Power On Auto Provisioning, POAP. And as you can see, the switch is sitting there going, hey, I don't have any configuration. I'm going to keep trying DHCP until somebody responds. And you can see here, my Nexus dashboard is actually responding with an IP, and it's going to download some scripts, and it's going to configure all the necessary basics for us to bring our fabric online. Now, this does take, around 10, 15 minutes or so to like download the script, configure the things. It will reboot the devices as well, and then discover them and bring them on. So this is happening right now with all 4 of my devices. Now, I'll make a little side note here, say if you don't want to use power on auto provisioning and you like to do it the manual old-fashioned way, you can break out of this in console and manually, stop the POAP process, log in, set an account, build a management IP in default gateway and blah, 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 and do all this manually. And then in NDFC, you could use the discover radio button and then put in your IPs and off you go. That's the hard manual way, or harder manual way. I'm just choosing to use as much automation and basic things to make my life easier because I kind of like how that works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of pause the video and come back after the discovery process is further along, so that we don't sit here watching this discovery thing happen over and over again. So when we come back, we'll see that our switches have been discovered in this manner, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so here we are, I want to say about 5-7 minutes later, and the complete discovery process and provisioning process has completed. And you can see here, I'm under the inventory tab under my switches, and you can see discovery status is A-OK. And if we look at the console, you can see it went through its process. It rebooted as a result of the process that's necessary, and then it completed the auto provisioning, and you can actually log in via console with the credentials that we set earlier. So this is exactly what you want to see. So now what we've done is we've discovered the switches, we've assigned a management IP, we've given a name to them, we've assigned a role. Now what we need to do is actually push all of the VXLAN EVPN configuration to actually bring up the fabric. Now, if you try to do all this manually by CLI, copying and pasting with text files and blah, 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 it's going to take you quite some time, and there's quite a number of configurations, and of course there's the chance for human error or making a typo in your config. That's not the way we want to do it. We want to do this with Nexus Dashboard because, as I said in the beginning, it makes things so much easier, and let me show you what I mean by that. So now that we've got base management IP and credentials, what we can do is go into the Blue Actions tab, and we can click something called Recalculate and Deploy. This is going to figure out, based on the roles and the topology and all the things we've set so far, exactly how to build a VXLAN EVPN fabric. It's going to use Cisco's best practices, so there's no question about which configuration or how to configure it. You're going to be following our recommended best practice, which is a good way to go. So I'm going to click Recalculate and Deploy, and it's going to go through and look at all the switches and look at the role and figure out what needs to go where. And then it's going to present me in just like about 5 seconds or so with a proposed configuration. Like I said, the very first time you do this, there's a little bit of calculation going on, but in just a second, you will actually see, and this is in real time, what's happening with NDFC. Okay, so here we are. You can see we've got our 4 devices, and we've got an out of sync status, which is expected because we haven't pushed any config yet. And then we've got a pending config. Now look at the number of lines, per device to make a VXLAN EVPN fabric. That's a lot of manual typing if you did it from CLI. This right here proves the power of Nexus Dashboard because it's doing all that for us, and it's doing it on best practice. I mean, there's really, this is the best way to go, is the point that I'm trying to make. I mean, you can click on that pending config for just a leaf, and you can see of the 600 plus things, there's all of the stuff that would be configured, or that you would have to configure in the CLI, and so on and so on. It's a lot of config. And again, all of this stuff, I don't remember how to do. I'd have to spend a lot of time reading up and building configs. And no, that just takes too much time. Let's do it the good way here. So if we are ready to go, and which we are because we have a clean fabric, we're just going to go ahead and say deploy all. And Nexus Dashboard is going to go out and say, okay, I'm going to go and push those configs to all those devices. And in literally, 20 seconds, 30 seconds most, these are going to be configured in a fully functional, ready to go VXLAN EVPN. That's the point that I wanted to make. That's what I said earlier when I said this was going to be very, very easy. So I'm going to let those commands get pushed. It'll probably take a minute or so here, but when it's done, I'm ready to actually start connecting things, building VRFs, building subnets, doing any kind of other regular daily configuration steps through Nexus Dashboard. But the point is, I was able to get from a fresh out of the box fabric to a fully functional, ready to go VXLAN EVPN in literally 10-15 minutes in real world time. That's pretty powerful. Now I'm going to end this video here, and in the next videos I'll actually show you what it looks like to build VRFs and build subnets and assign VLANs and connect things, and then we'll connect some stuff and we'll ping and we'll show you all of that stuff working in a very simple design. But for now, thanks for watching this video and stay tuned for the next video in the line. Thank you very much.